Hey, good morning, Andrew.
Jeremy, it's good to see you. It's
Here
good
we
to
are
see you.
again.
Yeah, again.
Again,
Yeah, we keep doing this.
have we kept track? I don't know what number this is. This might be, we're not in double digits for live streams quite yet, but we're getting close. 8, 9. So, well, this particular one is how to become a better writer in ChatGPT.
Now,
But
hang
yeah,
on, I thought that ChatGPT just made us better writers because it writes stuff.
I
I
was
mean, not
thinking
to dumb it down too much, but it writes stuff, right?
it does write stuff, and we're going to take a look at that. And before we kind of cover what we're going to cover, I mean, let's talk about this title because we were playing around with this. You know how a lot of those blog articles kind of pose everything as a question, like, can ChatGPT help you become a better writer? And so the answer is one that we're going to try to cover here. But we've done a lot of work with this. The I'm going to talk a little bit about the inspiration for this because I have to give credit where credit is due. So I'm going to share my screen and Ramon behind the scenes. Hopefully you're accepting this so everyone can see it. Okay. So yeah, I do want to kind of give credit where credit is due. So the seeds of this idea started from an article that came from this piece of software called IA, which we have nothing to do with. Just kind of appreciate its idea. So IA Writer, it's basically software that's been around for a while, and the goal is to remove all distractions. So the only thing you're focusing on is this black and white text, and in theory you're not going online and googling and distracting yourself from the hard work, and there's no user interface and all that. But the real article here is let me just change the thing I'm sharing for, is this article that was done called Turning the Tables on AI. And I was really struck by this. It's a very short article. I recommend you kind of check it out. Again, it's software specific to a degree, but it had this interesting idea, and like you can kind of look at it here. But what if we use AI not to think less, but more? Hmm. So again, I
I
recommend.
think I saw a movie where that happens. It's not good for humans.
That's right. So exactly, this is in the year 2024. Oh wait. Um, so yeah, the basic idea is kind of this. It's like turning the tables. So instead of having ChatGPT write stuff, we're going to take a look on how you can turn the tables, flip the script, and have ChatGPT prompt you and kind of function as what I would call a writing partner. So that's the basic idea. We're going to take a look at these, but I don't think we're bearing the lead too much by saying, like, I don't know. As we were exploring this in the past couple of weeks, I don't know. My thoughts on whether ChatGPT is an effective writing partner kind of seesawed back and forth. It went in a couple directions. I do want to point out, as with all our live streams, we are doing this live. ChatGPT has a tradition of sometimes either misbehaving or going off in directions that are, I don't know, interesting, for lack of a better word. Is that fair? Is that a fair characterization? Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think it would also we should mention that as we were conjuring up this idea, that you and I both referred to having seen the recent season of True Detective,
Mm-hmm.
where the protagonist has a style of trying to uh, unearth a mystery by challenging whomever she's working with to ask a better question.
Right.
And I think that as when you said ChatGPT as a writing partner, I think that was almost like the personification of that role, right?
Yep.
Where it's like that's not the right question to ask, and if ChatGPT can have us think about questions differently, it can help us understand, express our ideas more clearly, or come up with more compelling ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And also what we're doing is kind of well, I don't know, it's not counterintuitive, but it's a little bit, it goes against the flow of what ChatGPT wants you to do. And so there are some interesting, it requires almost a rewiring of how you think about it. So just a few technical pieces before we start. We are using ChatGPT 4.0, which I've already forgotten what that stands for, even though we've talked about it several times. And the context of what we're going to do is something like this. So we're going to write a simple prompt. And again, let's imagine you're in the context of you need to write an article about something. In this case, the general idea is remote work, and specifically remote workers who are at standing desks or sitting, and like, why is this a good idea? Why should you alternate between standing and sitting throughout the workday? Now, in the back of your mind, you probably have some idea of what this means, but we're just going to ask ChatGPT to write it. So write an 800-word article about why remote workers should alternate between standing and sitting throughout the workday. Beep, boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, perfect.
Beep, boop, boop, boop. Beep, 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 beep.
Hey, Jeremy, according to me, we're done.
We are. Yep.
Man, this is amazing.
This is
Hey, I
amazing.
just want to also mention that, like, while we're using ChatGPT and while we're using ChatGPT 4.0, you can use, for the most part, any of the the usual suspects
Yep.
for this. Your mileage will most certainly vary based on the platform, based on the time of day, based on the specific model, etc. So you can try it at home with whichever LLM you prefer.
And this is the point where I was just mentioning earlier. I had recently seen, and I recommend, there's a great documentary on Steve Martin, who I think it's on Apple TV. And one of the pieces of his act is like he would do something. He would like get out on stage and like introduce himself and be like, "Thank you very much, thank you everybody." And now, and this is kind of that, right? We're done.
Yeah, totally. Well, effectively, right? You said write an 800-word article about standing, and of course, it did.
Yep, it did. And so, what's wrong with this? Well, I mean, the traditional flow and the way that a lot of people recommend using ChatGPT would be like, okay, do something like this, have it write this article, and then go in and edit it and make the changes as you see fit. And where to start with that? First of all, let's just start from a really analytical standpoint. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all of, whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to copy all of this text. I'm going to take this, I really should use a mouse. Let's see if I can get that. Okay. And we're going to go into, let's see if I can do this, share this tab. So we're going to go into one of these programs, which I'm sorry, it's bombarding us with ads, but this is the price we pay. So what I did was I copy and pasted this article that ChatGPT wrote into one of the many ChatGPT detectors out there. This is zerogpt.com, but there's also gpt0.com. There's a whole bunch of them. And basically, we're going to ask this to analyze this and tell us like what, oh, wow. Yeah. Is this a surprise? Um, this text that ChatGPT generated is 98.5% chance AI generated. So that's a problem, maybe, most
Should be
likely.
100%. How smart can this be?
I think in this one sentence, it decided, like, for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's the one sentence that is potentially human crafted.
Yeah. So, okay, so we can start with that.
So
That's
this is bad, right? Like I mean, this would be the thing that we don't want, which is that when we're writing an article and we send it to somebody, that they could just copy and paste, put it in there, and just see if you
yeah,
mailed it in the most lazy possible fashion.
exactly. And one of the things we're going to be covering throughout this live stream is, I mean, there might be scenarios where this is, I'm not even going to say okay, but like, um, a lot of what we're talking about depends on the context. So when we pose this question, or when we say ChatGPT can help you become a better writer, it really requires you to ask the question, do you want to become a better writer?
And when is the deadline?
And when is the deadline? Those are two important questions. Do you actually care about improving your writing skills? And what is the thing you're doing? And when is it due? Okay, so I'm going to go out on a limb and saying what we just did was probably not a great idea. In terms of the amount of work it would take to reduce that from 98%, chat gpt written to something that feels more human and uses your words, honestly, that's actually a lot of work. You're It's like you're climbing up a mountain, and now you need to climb up another mountain when you reach the top. It's, or I don't know, that's not really a great analogy. What's a better one? Maybe you're taking a gondola to the top of a mountain, and then you have to walk down the mountain, and that's actually as much work. I don't know. I need to work on my metaphors. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically do another prompt. And actually, let's start this from scratch, because we don't necessarily want ChatGPT to redo this in the same conversation. So this time we're going to ask the exact same question, but we're going to add this one little important piece here. Help me structure an outline. So this, all of a sudden, just one little addition to this starts making things a little more interesting. Keep in mind, we have set these parameters of 800 words. So that's kind of important. And what it's going to do is it's essentially going to give you a recipe for writing an article based on an outline. So typically speaking, we have an introduction, so a brief anecdote or statistic about the rise of remote work and its impact on physical health, a thesis statement, so an explanation of the importance of alternating between standing and sitting for remote workers to improve health, productivity, and overall well-being, an overview. Now, I do want to point out again, we are talking about writing an 800-page or 800-word article. Because of the context of this, we're not going to be like reading this article throughout this live stream. We'll just be kind of diving in and showing you some different pieces. But I don't know, Andrew, this gives us a pretty solid outline.
Yeah, I mean, sub point A, sub point B. I don't know. Like my feeling is always like, well, you've crossed the threshold into using
Yeah.
that GPT to help you with this article, and so okay. So now what? So now copy and paste this into the prompt and say like, now write the article. This looks all right,
Yep.
but make it better.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So even here, the way I look at this is almost like a gut check, and the outline itself is going to require you to do some work. But this really gets to the crux of what we're talking about here. Like writing requires work. Writing something good requires work. What we're trying to do here is find the balance of, where can ChatGPT or these language learning model systems, where can they kind of help us find a middle ground? We don't want it to write it for us completely, but we may need some help in the structure and direction.
So can I revise your question that you asked somewhat rhetorically, which is, do you want to be a better writer?
Yeah.
What about, do you want to write anything? Like, do you even want to write?
Yeah.
And because that's the real question. That if you because you're gonna have to write
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, exactly. So, so right away, like our recommendation here, is not to necessarily use this outline wholesale, but you're going to have to go in, and this is going to be easier to edit. Yeah, the subpoint A, B, C, like these are all weird. You could just say, again, you could use some standard prompting revision, and instead of using the word subpoint, just use standard, what we would call numbered outline.
Now there's even more work to do.
Yeah, but at least this is a little more logical. Okay, so the next piece here, so we could look at that, and again, for the sake of time, we're not going to kind of go through and edit this outline. We do kind of have a pre-made outline that's more or less based on this one. But what we're going to do now is we're going to, again, ask ChatGPT to really take on the role of a writing partner or a collaborator. Really stress it requires you to have a decent outline to begin with. And so again, we had ChatGPT generated, but this could also stem from one that you've done manually or have pre-existing. Okay, so what we're now going to do is start this process. So the prompt here is, here's an outline that discusses my personal narrative of experiencing discomfort while working at home. Ask me questions related to the outline that will allow you to understand my story. Then using my answers, generate an 800-word article. So this is really the crux of it. Again, instead of asking it to write for us, we've given it an outline, or we're about to give it an outline, and then it's going to start interrogating us. Right?
It sounds really fun. So if writing feels arduous to somebody, this sounds like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, just for the sake of speed, one that we just generated, but it's just going to be, and then we're going to start this. And again, we're also going to kind of take a shortcut with this, because again, this involves a little bit of work. The point here is these questions are going to require you to, type in your own and write in your own words. So let's just take a look at the introduction. Question number 1, why did you start working remotely? Well, you could talk about the pandemic. You could start typing about any number of reasons of why you started working remotely. I have a standing, use a mat, whatever. And what were your expectations regarding remote work before we'll see in a second, all, some, or none of these questions. And they gave us about 19 or, yeah, 19.
That is so much. It feels like
So
doing
every
one of
time we
those
do this, do you
surveys
feel
where
like
you have no idea how long, you know.
Yeah, I mean, do you think these are a lot of questions to answer?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I would rather just say write the article for me because the deadline's looming.
Right, but you know people are going to be putting it in the AI tester. I mean, you don't want to get flagged, do you? Or do you?
No, I think that if I'm submitting a piece of written work that I'm claiming to have written, I would be mortified if it showed up as being flagged as AI generated. And Jeremy, actually, and apropos of that, there was a question in the chat
Oh,
from
okay.
Jordan asking how Zero GPT and others can makes that assessment of the likelihood that it was generated by AI. And it's all if I remember, the way that they built that was training the model on the model, and so basically looking at the types of things that that ChatGPT and that sort of cohort of LLMs were the types of the patterns of the words that they tended to use.
Yeah.
And there is one sort of tangential comment I'll make about that, which is that we've also seen the unexplainable rise of the frequency of certain words in usage, and there many and it sort of like aligns with the rise of use of AI in generating content. So there are words that hadn't been seen on the radar
Yep.
for decades, and suddenly have become almost overused, and that's the result of that word going into the regurgitation machine. Um,
Yeah,
so we're
exactly.
getting some
And
good questions, actually, Jeremy, about um,
okay.
the ways to get a better to ways to get a better article. And I don't know if we want to talk about that now, or if we want to talk about that later. But the questions about um, adding is that basically spicing up the prompts. I mean, these are very vanilla prompts, right? We're not asking,
Yeah.
we're not providing a writing sample to say like
Yep.
make it feel personal, make it feel. I know I'm sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but I
Yep.
guess the short answer to the questions, and Marcelo, good to see you. Asked, could you change the voice and tone, right? And like, would you be able to personalize your article that way? And certainly, once you once you have it generate your article, the one that got a 98 point something percent likelihood of it being written by AI, certainly you could continue to massage that and add and embellish to, and it's possible that it would come out
Yep.
with a lower score, or that it would feel less cookie cutter. Um, and I guess that's a different direction to go when trying to figure out ways to have ChatGPT and others produce content for you that doesn't seem robotic.
Yeah.
But certainly, we could the outline that we uploaded is one that was slightly adjusted, right? um, to be more aligned with what Jeremy wanted his article to be about. But the
Yeah.
short answer is yes, absolutely. At any point, you could embellish these prompts to fine tune it to develop um,
Yep.
a more personalized and a more specific and unique sort
Yep.
of document.
Well, and and remember, we also kind of went on a little uh, kind of rabbit hole experiment about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where we actually tried to use the voice. We tried to train ChatGPT to use our own voice and tone based on previous articles and writing, and actually was interrogating us again, like how we liked to write articles. And it was an interesting diversion, but at the same time, what you'll find, and we'll see it again here, most likely, I almost guarantee, is remember what we're trying to do here. And someone asked, like, are we going to hit more advanced topics? And I would say this whole thing is an advanced topic in the sense of like we're trying to force ChatGPT to do something it doesn't want to do. What does ChatGPT want to do? It wants to rewrite your work. Always you use voice and tone, and you give it text that was written in your words, it's going to change it and it's going to rewrite it. And we'll see this. We'll see this shortly. So,
and Jeremy, when we were testing that, did you feel that it was able to sort of apply your personal written style to words that it had already written?
I mean, to be fair, we didn't do an exhaustive training series on this. I feel like the short answer is no. And the longer answer is like, well, maybe if I had given it 50 to 100 articles that I had written, it might have had a better chance of doing that. But otherwise, so to be fair, like, I feel like it probably is an interesting path for established writers to potentially go down to use as like a writing aid or tool. But in this situation, it didn't really seem to help.
Yeah, I think that that level of granularity with fine tuning the actual words, even the cadence of sentences, it either it knows how to make it formal or less formal. It knows how to make it more lighthearted or more serious and dry. And I think those are very big categories. And so. If your writing style falls into one of those categories, then it can apply that general stamp. But one last interruption, Jeremy. That apparently there's an issue with on LinkedIn with the way that we're unable to comment in the chat or something. But I just want to make sure that everybody who's listening knows that this is going to be recorded, and in fact, as soon as the stream ends, the recording is available right at the same URL.
Yeah. So, thank you for that. So, I just wanted to show one little follow up to this. You can use this at any point. This prompt of asking ChatGPT to ask you questions is extremely powerful. And again, there are entire learning language models. I'm spacing out on the names of them, but there are entire systems that are based on this that for different reasons, not necessarily for writing, but for other ones like personal health and so forth. It's all based on the same idea, which is like using ChatGPT or using these language models to essentially extract the information out of you by asking poignant questions. And whenever you do that, again, it will tend to give you this flood of questions right away, which is not super helpful. So I typically do something like this. Just say, hey, can you start from the beginning and ask me each question one at a time, and then record these answers for later use. And it's like, yeah, of course, we can do that. So it'll just ask you those questions one at a time and remember them. Okay. So at this point, again, I'm going to cooking show style go, and instead of answering these questions in real time, I'm going to go to a previous chat. And again, we're not going to walk through all of this, but I do want to point out that there's 19 questions here. And to me, the amount of work, this is like stream of consciousness. Oftentimes when you're writing a first draft of an article, you'll sit down and you'll just kind of do like a brain dump and try to get it all down on paper. This is very similar, except it's doing it in a slightly different way. Remember that it's using the outline that we gave it. So that outline is kind of tucked away in the backstage, and it's going to be using it. But right now, it's asking us questions, and you're just answering them as straightforward as you can. So, how did you first realize that working from home was causing you discomfort? Well, after about 3 months, I woke up and I had a pain in my foot, and it would go away by lunchtime, and et cetera, et cetera. Question number 2, like, what were your initial feelings about working from home before you experienced discomfort? Now, to me, this is a kind of a stupid question. We got to accept that this is still ChatGPT's like de facto. Like some of these are going to be off kilter. So feel free to just say pass. Now, keep in mind that say pass for the right reason. Don't say pass because necessarily it's like, oh, that seems like a lot of work. It's more of like the question just doesn't make sense.
I think that at the point where you've decided that you're actually going to do this writing, which ironically we didn't, and we jumped to a pre-filled one,
Yeah.
but that you're going to that you actually earnestly want to actually write. And so I don't know about your writing practice, Jeremy, but like there are a number of ways that I find myself getting to the point where I can do that sort of that brain dump of just writing that stream of consciousness and getting the ideas out there.
Yep.
And sometimes it's sort of through starting with a mind map. Sometimes it's looking at the outline.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just some sort of disjointed mess. But I
Yep.
think that this way of having it ask you the question and have you write, it's a sort of a structured brain dump in a way, right? Because it's not, you're
Yeah.
not writing off and going off on tangents
Yep.
needlessly. I think you're sort of fulfilling the remit of the outline.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, what happens is, and I do it, I think people are different and they write in different ways. I think for me, and I think for a lot of writers, like if you've given a topic, you're very excited and you're engaged about certain things that you want to share. And those are the things that are top of mind, and you're like just so eager to get them out. And oftentimes you can do that fairly easily. And then you have to cycle back, and there's the hard work of connecting these things, or maybe there's some gaps that you need to cover. And so to me, what this does is it captures the exciting pieces. It captures the things that you think are interesting. So here's a good example where it's, did you try any popular solutions, such as ergonomic chairs or standing desks? And I said, sure, I had a standing desk. But, what I learned was that, people who are in bare feet or wearing socks and have hard floors, you're basically going to increase your risk of plantar fasciitis. That's just this term for the pain that you get kind of in your feet. And it turns out like this is happening a lot. And there was actually like a name for it. A doctor gave it a name, like pandemic foot, because all these people, a lot of them still are walking around their house in bare feet or socks, and that's not a good thing for your feet. So like to me, it's like, okay, this is one little piece that's like, I want to get that down. I also want to get down like what helped, how I made it better. And it will continue to ask these questions. And again, we're going to kind of skip ahead here. And then when it's done, it's going to say, okay, cool. You've given me a lot of information basically in your words. I'm going to give you a draft. So again, this is one of the scenarios where we can't really walk through this whole thing in a live stream, but I do want to point out that essentially it is remixing your words, but it's not rewriting your words. Okay, I feel like this is a really important concept to stress.
I feel like there's a lawyer who's explaining this to a jury, like it's a very subtle difference between remixing and rewriting.
Well, except here is our lawyer. our lawyer is zero GPT. This is the effect our lawyer. So what we're going to say is, okay, so it wrote this article for us, but it used our words. What does the AI detector have to say? So we're going to copy and paste this, ask it to detect it. And there you go.
Whoa.
So
I think that's a
now,
little bit of magic.
so we went, I think so. I mean, we went from 98% AI written to 87, 86% human written, or 13% chance of being written by AI. And it will try to flag again. Each one of these systems does it slightly differently. The yellow pieces are things that it thinks may have a chance of being written by AI, and there are these two flags here. And so you could go in, and if you're really concerned about that, you could rewrite those or try to understand what the issue is. But all right there, to me, like this does a lot. This says a lot. What this, to me, I find this super interesting, because what it means is, again, with a little bit of work, you can use ChatGPT as like a collaborator, as a writing coach, someone who's prompting you and asking you questions, and then able to meld those with that outline and actually create something that is original, that is in your words.
But be honest, Jeremy, how long did you spend writing your responses to the questions?
Honestly, I did not. If you look at these, it really was not that long. I mean, I'm gonna say it was probably 10 minutes. Not that long. I had all of these points, I think, were like kind of top of mind. They were things that I was kind of, I had right there. I didn't have to think about the responses. So it was not that long. 10 minutes maybe. Okay. So but are we done?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Is it a good article? That's the real question. Because now I'm all excited about being a better writer. So before, when I didn't have any skin in the game, that the one that it generated that got 98%, which last time I checked, if I got a 98 on a test, I'd be doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're still slugging away, and I've already submitted mine.
Yeah. The truth is, if we look at this article, it's in our words, it's used that outline. And again, for the sake of our viewers, I don't want to kind of read the entire article, but at the same time, it's functional. I wouldn't call it like a great article yet, but again, it didn't take that long to create. So are there ways to continue pushing this forward and continue making it better? So I think the answer is yeah, we can get it a little further. We can do a little bit more with it, where we can understand the areas that we need to do. So for the sake, again, of the live stream, what I've done here is copy and pasted that article and put it into a text file. And now this isn't necessarily going to improve it yet, but we do want to get like a sense of like, what does ChatGPT think of this article? This is another good prompt that you can do with anything. Again, we're doing it with something that we've generated, but you can do this with any blog post or article or any sort of copy that you've created. And it's so simple that you might forget you can do it. Simply analyze the genre, content, and style of this article. And so remember, ChatGPT was trained on this stuff. It was born in this world of analyzing content like this. So it's going to correctly kind of identify this as belonging to the personal health and wellness genre. Focuses on the author's personal experiences with physical discomfort relating to working from home, particularly addressing a health issue and the steps taken. Do you think it knew that the pun was there? Come on.
Does it even have a sense of humor for real?
Oh, dad jokes 101.
But actually, so this is why one of the strengths of LLMs is uh, to tag articles.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of dissect and understand, like, again, like the style of an article. It's informal, it's personal. Yep. Like, so this is a way to me, like a gut check. Like before you have something, before you start writing an article, you typically kind of have some sort of understanding of what you're aiming for. In this case, like, yeah, informal, kind of personal, using a first person perspective, some personal anecdotes. This is not a scientific article. This is, not this is not ending up in Psychology Today or anything like that. But generally speaking, you can do this just as like a gut check. Like, am I in the ballpark here? And in this case, we could say, yeah, like this seems like a good first stab. Before we kind of move to the next step, do we have any other live stream chat questions?
Well, I think so. We have one question was whether having ChatGPT paraphrase something for you would that paraphrasing get flagged as AI generated. And I think the answer, of course, would be most likely yes. That if ChatGPT is generating the actual words, the patterns of the words that it's going to generate in paraphrasing would they would follow the patterns that would flag it as being AI generated. And we did get a question about using this as this is an example for something long form or longer form, and then what about UX writing for interfaces or microcopy? And I think I'll take one step back, and that is there was a point you made earlier, Jeremy, about the getting that first draft done, and this is really one of the themes of the things that we've been trying to stress with all of our sort of explorations in this space is that as for crafting a final result, it's less successful, but for helping you get from the blank page to something, that it's a way of turbocharging that part of the process to the first draft, and that reworking it from the standpoint of reworking your own words, it's far easier to do than reworking words that are just sort of generated by the algorithm.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So let's we'll answer a couple more questions potentially, but what we're not going to do is, again, we're going to move forward and say, like, okay, so we've got this, this decent article. It's written in our own words, more or less. It uses this outline and the structure that we're happy with. Chances are there are probably some things that you already know. Again, most writers kind of know the stuff that they're procrastinating. Like the things I'm really excited to talk about, I've mentioned, those are probably in that draft. But to make this kind of a more legitimate article, there might be things like, facts, those pesky things. Was that Reagan's? What was Reagan's thing? Was that?
Yeah. But wait, we know that this is the Achilles heel, right, of the ChatGPT family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and in what way? Like, explain for our audience.
Facts.
Yes.
That way.
And they are pesky for both ChatGPT and humans, as it turns out.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think I'm speaking more from just like maybe this from a higher level. There are parts to many articles that, like, some writers love doing that part. Like they love doing the research and finding, like, quotes from medical or ergonomic experts, and and that's can be fun depending on what you're researching and doing. In this case, what we're simply saying is, okay, I need to add some quotes from medical or ergonomic experts in this article. where would be the best place to do this? So now we're asking it to analyze and offer suggestions. In its very robotic way, it's like, yes, adding quotations from medical or ergonomic experts can increase the credibility and
Making
inform
more personal.
Okay, so lots of things to keep in mind here. So what it's going to do is it's going to give you some sample quotes of the sort of of quotes that it thinks you should put in. Really important here. These are not real quotes, people. These are simply
Hang on, Jeremy. I need to call my insurance because I'm pretty sure that I just sent a copay to Dr. John Doe, the orthopedic specialist.
Did he text you? Is it one of those anonymous texts like you
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So what it does, it will give you like 3 or 4 sorts of quotes, but it will also try to integrate these quotes into your existing sections. So this is kind of your red flag. Whenever you hear ChatGPT kind of like saying like, hey, how does this look? I'm going to rewrite this for you. You got to be careful. This can be useful for you as a tool to kind of go and do your own research. It's simply saying like, hey, in the second paragraph, you would really, you mention, let's just see if we can find an example. Yeah, again, it's doing it in a very robotic kind of tone, but saying, an expert quotation can validate the effectiveness of the solutions the author found. Ergonomist, whatever. White noticed.
Ergonomist?
Yeah, thank you. Is that even a word?
I wouldn't use it.
I wouldn't use it either. But what I would do is I would kind of do my research and kind of find some scientific research about using a standing mat and why it's beneficial, and add that into the section of the article that talks about it.
One important caveat, as we discovered, is that if you do a quick Google search for something that someone might say about the value of standing or a standing desk or whatever, and using a mat, etc., and you include and you find it on a blog article, you find a quote on a blog article that's published by an orthopedic practice or something like that, which is most commonly where you'll see these things, and you put them in your article when you test the AI quotient. Suddenly the score will go up. And if you're wondering why, it's because those very same quotes were probably scanned and scraped when the model was being trained.
Yeah.
If you found them, the LLMs have found them too.
And I would also suggest not doing the following, because we tried this several times. It's very tempting to go in and say something like, oh, cool. Can you go online and find some real quotes from real medical experts for this article? You would think that this is a good idea. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not. It seems like the sort of thing that these LLMs should be good at, and maybe they might be in 5 years, or a couple of years, or next year. But in our experience, when you do this, sure, it's going to go online, and it may or may not find some quotes. I'm not trusting anything here, and I'll show you potentially why. Again, remember, this is all live. I don't know, where this is going to go, but
maybe someone fixed it on the weekend.
Maybe someone fixed it. I don't think so. So let's just look at this first one. So what ChatGPT 4.0, and I think some of this, almost every version now realizes like, oh, it's kind of a good idea to like point to the primary evidence. So here's a quote, and here's a link to the Mayo Clinic. Here's a link to, Verywell Health, top doctors, Verywell Health and Mayo Ortho Sports. If you click on one of these, again, you might luck out. This actually worked fairly well. I went to an article from the Mayo Clinic, but notice that first of all, like that quote is not on here. Like this is just like a general article. So this is not helpful. And this is actually more helpful than some of the previous examples I've had, which simply like send you to like the login page of the Mayo Clinic.
But nobody clicks to check the reference, Jeremy. They see that and they're like, oh, Mayo Clinic. I'm in. Mayo.
Yeah. So it might sound like a good idea. I don't recommend using ChatGPT as a way to do medical or scientific research unless you're an expert on that or using like a specially tuned system that is known for returning valid results. But
also, note to self: don't use it to find an orthopedist.
This is also very true. Okay. What we're going to do here is, again, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit. And we're going to do one last thing here, and we'll spend some time with questions. But again, fast forwarding, let's say we've now got a new draft. We've added some quotes in from legitimate medical resources that back up the arguments or the data that we use in our article. Cool. What we're now going to do is we're going to give that to ChatGPT, and we're going to ask this fairly important question. And you can do this with anything, whether it's generated in this way or elsewhere, which is assuming the role of an editor and with the understanding that there's a limit of 800 words, how would you improve this article? And in theory, we should get a laundry list of stuff.
And we could also specify, assuming the role of an editor for a magazine such as, right,
Yep.
that focuses on, right, so fine-tuning it, because this is going to start with the somewhat generic editor.
Yep.
If we said award-winning,
Yep, exactly.
over the top,
Yep.
somewhat addled.
Yep. Yeah. This could be fun. But I do want to point out kind of what it's doing here. Red flag.
Yeah, why did it do that?
Because it will give us the suggestions of what it did, but really want to point out to our listeners or viewers, we've mentioned at the beginning, and I'll say it here again, what ChatGPT wants to do is rewrite your words. That's what
it wants to do the writing for you, which sounds like a pretty good deal to me as the, did I want to be a writer? Anyway.
Yeah, this is what it was built to do. It was built to essentially generate text that it could predict based on all of the data that it was trained on. So we're really fighting against the flow here. It wants to take our crafted language with our quotes, and it wants to rewrite it. My suggestion is you ignore this completely, because typically down below, or you can follow up with this, like you could say, yeah, that's great, but I actually wanted step-by-step analysis of how to improve it, not rewritten. And in theory, you could add that for the advanced users. You could add that into your original prompt if you do a lot of this. If you know that it wants to rewrite it, it will keep on doing this in different flavors. So it will, I kind of like this version better. What it's doing is it's showing you your original writing. And again, it's showing you like, oh, well, hey, here's how I would rewrite it. I'm still ignoring this. I'm still ignoring personally. Your mileage may vary. We're just the messengers here. I'm going to plead with you to not let it rewrite, but maybe look at the comments it's making. Like, yeah, your introduction is setting the stage, but it can be more engaging. Okay, so like, sure, I'm gonna go. Okay, so how could I do that? Same thing. Like this analysis and this improvement, I find helpful. Clearly separate the issues related to sitting and standing. Okay. What I don't want it to do personally is accept the rewrites that it wants to do for me. I realize this might be a controversial statement. I don't think that these are going to make a more original article, but I do think that the analysis of how it could be improved is valuable.
Yeah, and you could also you could take
Yeah,
it up on any one of those points and ask, like,
exactly.
so, give me some ideas about ways that I could make the introduction more engaging.
Yeah,
And granted, it may not have done its very best work when it was rewriting it the first time around, right? But I think that the danger with adding in content that you have not written, right, but that it is rewriting for you, is that each time you do that, you are putting content in that is going to be that is going to make it much more likely to be flagged as AI generated content. Uh, and it should, because you're changing your words and replacing it
yeah.
with words that ChatGPT has produced.
So yeah, so let's just do what you suggested here, and then we'll wind things down and hopefully answer some questions. So yeah, so you can take any one of these things, and so in this case, we'll just say, give me examples of how to improve the clarity of the introduction, and it's going to reference that suggestion that it made earlier. And again, it's gonna probably want to try to rewrite it. Yep, right.
Yeah,
But it's okay because to me, like the valuable, like I'm ignoring this stuff. Or again, if it's good, like sure, take it and rewrite it or do something. But just be very, very careful about accepting it unless it seems to, you know, be better. Um, but again, like to me, like it is fairly good at understanding the problems. Like you weren't specific enough about the timing and the symptoms. Your sentences were too ornate or whatever, so simplify them. Use an active voice. You could take this in any number of directions, but to me, these these strategies are valid, and it's kind of up to you to accept them. And this almost takes us full circle. Like, do you want to do the work to become a better writer to begin with? And I think that ChatGPT can be a valuable and important kind of collaborator, but hopefully we've kind of given you some ammo to help do that.
yeah. So we had a we had a request to do a recap of our key points. And I guess the one key point that I would want to stress is that this is a somewhat non-obvious use of generative AI, and it's not to generate the words for you, but to draw out the best words from you. Uh, uh, yeah,
Yeah, I would say that so the three main points to me would be like ChatGPT can help you, one, with ideation, so creating an outline. Two, it can help you develop the thesis and the argument of an article using your own words. And then the third piece I would say key point is that it can also offer you feedback and edits on your content. So those would be the 3 points.
Yeah.
So
We're out of time.
we are out of time, and we'd love to get your feedback on this. We will be offering this up for recording or as a recording. So be sure to check out our LinkedIn profile. We'll kind of post that on the Gymnasium account when it's available. Anything else that we need to follow up on?
I don't think so. Just, good, right. Good writing.
Right, and stay safe out there, people.
Exactly.
Be
Right.
careful. Yeah, be careful of the rewriting monster.
Yes.
That's all I'm gonna say. All right, with that, we bid you adieu. Thank you so much for spending your Monday morning if you're on East Coast American time, and if not, wherever you are, thank you for spending some time learning a little bit about